sides. Like the Hagna committed war crimes probably, and on the other side there were crimes. But history is history, and now you have a state of Israel, and there needs to be peace in the region. So, when Hamas attacked Israel, Israel had the right to defend itself by going in and making sure that Hamas would never attack Israel again. And they have the right to do that.
But killing all the babies. Let him finish his point. Let him finish his point.
I'll do 2 minutes if you want.
Let him finish his point.
Because I am very pro-peace in the Middle East. I am pro-peace for the Arab people.
Let him finish his point.
Peace for the Jewish people.
Let him finish his point.
We need
let him finish
peace,
his point.
because otherwise, you are going to have this problem coming up again and again and again and again. And sometimes if there is a war, people get displaced. Now, we can do this timed. I condemn any soldiers who commit war crimes. Now, the Israeli government has got serious faults, but do you agree that Hamas were right in taking women and children and murdering them in cold blood while they were in captivity? That is a war crime by Hamas. There needs to be peace in the Middle East, and there needs to be a
Let him finish his point. Let him finish.
do that.
Let him finish. Okay, you finished? You
Yes.
finished? Okay.
Well, let's do 2 minutes each.
First,
Just two, 'cause
well, I've allowed you to make your point. Right.
Yeah.
Now, we want to start the conflict from the
Yes.
7th of October.
Yes.
There were
that needs to
four.
stop.
There were four equivalent 7th of Octobers just leading up to the 7th of October, but that was inflicted against the Palestinian people. That was inflicted against the Palestinian people. You have subjugation, you have oppression, you have rape, you have thousands of hostages in Israeli prisons, many of whom have never been charged. And Israel is one of the only governments that it arrests and it keeps children in detention. Now, not only that, but it rapes those children. The American Foreign Office, I believe it was, there's a chap on there who came very recently on the media, and he said that there was credible evidence of a 13-year-old boy that was raped in an Israeli prison. When they raised that point with the Israelis, because the Jewish charity that had raised that issue, they were raided by the Israelis, their computers were confiscated, and they were designated a terrorist organization for simply informing the Americans of this rape. Now, these things are happening on a daily basis. Now, do I support Hamas or anybody targeting deliberately civilians? As a Muslim, I am not allowed to do that, even if my heart was to incline towards that type of revengeful behavior. Because in Islam, we have a very, very precise way of having a fight or a war with anyone. Women and children are not permitted to be deliberately attacked. But however, you say it's and I find this very astonishing. They use the word medieval, barbaric, when it's the brown Arab or the brown man that does these things. But they don't seem to use barbaric or medieval when Israel has killed potentially over 150, possibly 200,000 people, even though the figures are, yes, because Trump said there's 1.9 million people in Gaza that need to be taken out of Gaza. And guess what? Before the war started, there was 2.2, 2.3 million people. So his figures that he's getting, that he's being informed about, are some 300,000 people have somehow disappeared because they don't need to be moved anymore. Now, the point here is this. If somebody comes and they steal your land and they start shooting your children and they put you in the garden shed and they say that you cannot leave that shed unless I tell you, your family are going to have calories, and Israel did do this. We're going to calculate the number of calories that will enter Gaza. So you're just above the line of starvation, right? Would you not stand up and fight? You call it a war. I call it shooting fish in a barrel, my friend. I call it Mike Tyson in a ring with a 3-year-old. It's not about. It is a genocide. You have America, the biggest military on earth, and Britain, still supplying aircraft from the base in Cyprus that flies over the Palestinian territories or around the outskirts of the territories, supporting the genocide that Israel has done. Now, the point I'm going to make, and I'm going to finish on this, anybody who supports Zionism, and I'm going to say this categorically, anybody who supports Zionism is either a racist or is willfully ignorant, but I would say willfully ignorant after some 16 months or so cannot be a feasible or a rational possibility. Now, why do I say racist? Because it is widely accepted that there is a different rule and a different law for the Palestinian than there is for the Israeli. And that is quintessentially the definition of what an apartheid state is. Now, if you supported South Africa during its apartheid state, if you supported the Ku Klux Klan or any other racist organization that killed or that targeted another people and had a different value system for them, it would have made you a racist. So why today, when you support Zionism, which is racism, racial supremacy, okay, against another race, why is it not racist? Answer that question.
Right, okay, can I have a 2-minute time?
Of course you can. Go ahead.
Because you keep putting a lot.
I allowed you to make all of your points, and you're welcome to make them.
Absolutely.
Please go ahead.
Being very respectful, and please understand, having lived in the Middle East, I love the Arab people. You're a brilliant culture. You're a very historic culture, but you have just said
Arab,
that you condemn what? Are you South Asian?
Yeah, I'm not Arab.
How's the cricket going with the...
I don't follow cricket. I'm not interested. I'm more interested about the Palestinian people.
Right, okay, the Palestinian people...
Who are being butchered and killed.
That's your first point, and thank you for this, but my phone is not in a good...
You can get it off these guys. You can get them.
Well, I tell you what, you are more respectful than these Bobites, so that's why I don't shout.
Good.
Because you're not like a Bobite.
Good.
And
I agree.
I share the pain of the Arab people in that territory of Gaza. But they went over a foreign border, or, whatever you think of Gaza, and attacked innocent women and children. And I believe that you have said that that is not allowed under the Muslim religion, and it was disgusting. Let me point out, now please do not be offended by this, it's a question. Please find me, and this is your homework for everybody listening to this, before the 1960s, the Arabs living in Israel and the occupied territories did not identify themselves as Palestinian. However, the problem was, and I will explain Zionism, in history, the First World War was a mistake, in my opinion, but it happened. In my opinion, William should not have come over in 1066. There are all kinds of problems that have happened in this world. It is 2025, not 1925. Yeah? Whatever you think of Zionism, the predecessor of the State of Israel was the Mandate for Palestine. The predate of the Mandate for Palestine was the Ottoman Empire. And the First World War was fought between 3 empires against each other. 3 versus 3. Now, when the Ottoman Empire collapsed, Zionism had already started. And the Zionist movement was when the Jewish people wanted to return to their land as part of the Bible. And you are talking about one of the most complex problems in history.
No,
yes, you are. No, you've given me time.
I'm giving you time.
Exactly.
I'm not interrupting you.
I do not say, well, the Jews and the Arabs were both basically guilty of all kinds of crimes against each other. Now, this country has got a disgraceful record when it went round the world. We did some good things, we did some bad things. What Churchill did in Bengal was genocide. Winston Churchill, and this will get put in a short, in my opinion, according to the evidence, having lived in India, committed genocide because he intentionally withheld food from those people. That is a crime specifically against the people who were living there. Now, the Arab-Israeli conflict, we could be here all day. The international community set up the mandate for Palestine. The British, and I talk about my country in the third person because I've got various nationalities, the British mishandled the mandate terribly. In 1948, the Haganah did not behave responsibly. There were people displaced. This is one of those things. But the Israel-Palestine is that the Palestinian, or the Arabs, as they called themselves at the time, rejected the UN partition plan.
If you don't mind,
they rejected it.
If you don't mind.
So we're up
Sorry,
to 2 minutes.
What's your name?
I'm James.
James. I'm not going to remember all those points. If you could just, if you don't mind,
just come in then.
Yeah, if you don't mind, yeah. Okay, look. First of all, pre-1960s, the brother is saying that the Palestine wasn't recognised. You can find maps from the 1800s where it clearly says Palestine. So that's not true. You can go even now on YouTube and you can look at pre-1948 videos of films that were black and white films of Palestine.
Which is the name of a territory.
It says Palestine on the buildings.
But
so there's no doubt. The second thing is...
It was the name of a territory.
You talk about empires. Yes, it's true. There were empires and empires conquered and we had to basically, live with that. That's how it was. However, when the United Nations was formed, it was precisely because of what we saw in the Second World War.
Where there was genocide.
Where we bombed Dresden, and we bombed those areas where it was mass bombings, and of course the Germans did their fair share as well, right? So we set up the United Nations, so never again would be allowed to happen. They would not allow that type of warfare where you would deliberately target, and so there were laws set up. There were definitions of what would be genocide, what would be acceptable. One of the criteria that was set up is that you will never be allowed to occupy land through war anymore. So there was a line in the sand that was drawn. Now, Israel broke all of those laws. It's the greatest breaker of United Nations sanctions. It ignored them, and it was never held accountable because of its influence within the Western Hemisphere, especially America, right? So this whole notion about, there were empires, this empire, yes, after the United Nations was formed, we agreed as a global community that we would not allow this to happen. Now, it is widely accepted, and the United Nations have made it very clear, that Israel has taken land through war. Now, when you say the Arabs did not accept the presence of Israel, there were over 500 villages, right, during the Nakba.
The Nakba, yeah.
Right, that were emptied out, where there was mass killing, mass rapes, and 750,000, some estimates up to 900,000 people were removed illegally from their land. Who's saying that? Not the Arabs, not me, but the United Nations, the international community. After 1967, Israel took more land, and it's illegal. It's illegally occupied according to the international community. It is in flagrant abuse of international law, and it is a genocidal state which is systematically destroying, either in part or in whole, a people. And the video images and what we see, the evidence, the analytical and empirical evidence that we see cannot be interpreted in any other way. Now, when you claim that it's a very complicated conflict,
it is.
It's not complicated.
Can we take a pause?
I'm just going to finish.
Yeah.
I agree. It's not complicated. If somebody takes your home and they shoot your children, how is that complicated? It's wrong. It doesn't require you to have sophistry. It doesn't require you to say, but what did this person do? What did that person say? No, that is wrong. it should not be allowed to happen. But Israel has been allowed to happen. Their war crimes are allowed because it holds great influence within the American administration and within Britain. It has great, you only have to go and watch the documentary, The Labour Files, how they got rid of Jeremy Corbyn. It says absolute,
national service.
An amazing amount of how influential the Zionist state is in basically running our government and the American government. But I'll let you come in there.
So you are now basically doing what, because I have been on camera, not quite as polite as this, going at the far right, by the way, who I believe are engaging in ethno-cultural nationalism.
You should be out about Zionism as well.
I understand this. Now listen, so please listen, because you put a lot, right. Number one, the territory of Palestine was named by the Romans. Now, I don't know why I wasn't around at the time, but there was the expulsion of the Jews in around AD 70. And that's why there were Jews living all over the Middle East. And under the Ottomans, there were Jews living all over the territory of the Middle East, which is a wonderful place and a wonderful place to live. In fact, actually, I'll tell you a surprise. If I had the choice between living in here or the Middle East at the moment, I would go with the Middle East, because this country is oppressive on a lot of people. Now, you mention about it being a territory. Now, I'll allow you to do that, but it was a territory. There are quotes from Arab leaders at the time who said there is no such thing as a Palestinian people. However, there were people living there. The other thing which is ignored by the Arab side is that the British mismanaged the mandate. They allowed people from Egypt and from Syria to pour in to this territory known as Palestine. As in the late Ottoman Empire, look up the population figures. When the Jewish people returned to their land, and I know that sounds inflammatory, when the Zionist movement started, they purchased land of Ottoman landlords, and they made a success of it, because Israel is a successful state. Now, that happened before the First World War. The British and the French were colonialists, and the British and the French are responsible for a lot of the conflict going along in the Middle East. They set up the Side-Pino Agreement, where the British... That's the one. They set that up, which was an act of colonial barbarism. So when you come out with that colonialism was wrong, the sign, you'll get the pronunciation, was where the British and the French partitioned the Ottoman Empire into mandates. And we messed the French over, because like good old British people, we took all the places with the oil. We got Kuwait, we got Qatar, we got everything. Whereas the French... No, and it was an act of colonial barbarism. So I can see where the Arabs come from. However, the British restricted Jewish immigration into the mandate, but yet they were allowing Arab migration. There were atrocities on both sides. Read the history. I would encourage any viewers to watch the Al Jazeera documentary Al-Nakba. The suffering of both sides at the time was terrible. So I am not saying that human beings are not nice to each other. But I'll give you an example of genocide. In Nazi Germany, and in France, and in Italy, and the French did this. They would go to someone's home to check if a Jew was living there. And if a Jew was living there, they would be incarcerated and sent to extermination camps. And many people, not just Germans, but the Germans, the French, the Austrians, deliberately sent people to death camps because they were Jews. Now, the Jewish people are a nation, and the international community, rightly or wrongly, decided to set up the mandate for Palestine. In 1948-9, there was a conflict. And there are conflicting sides. The Jewish Virtual Library, which is a website, says quite clearly that the Arab armies told Arab communities to flee. That is the claim of the Jews. There is evidence in the Al Jazeera that the Haganah behaved terribly.
I can't remember all the points you're making. Look, first of all, my friend here is claiming that the Jews were returning back to the land. If you look at the study done by Harvard University, the Palestinians have 50 to 70% DNA connected to the Canaanite people that were there 3,500 years ago. The Palestinian people are from that land. Now, Netanyahu's actual name is not even Benjamin Netanyahu. He's got a Polish name. These are Polish immigrants, Italian immigrants, Greek immigrants, and yes, maybe some Sephardic Jews, maybe some Orthodox Jews that do have DNA links to that land, but many of them do not. They are Western occupiers who have gone into that land. Now, you say a very interesting point. The Jews were indeed persecuted in Europe.
Yes.
If you look at the works of David Wasserstein, he wrote in the Jewish Chronicle how Islam saved Jewry, because it was the Muslim lands that they fled to. It was the Ottoman lands that the Jews fled to. It was Spain that the Jews fled to, and they had sanctity there. They were persecuted in Europe by Christian Europe, so give them a piece of Christian Europe. Give them a piece of Germany. Why do you go into Palestinian land where people are living there for thousands of years, who have as much right, if not more, to the European settler that's gone in? Okay, why do you take their land? Why is the Nakba allowed? Why are 500 villages emptied? Now, you make a point that some of the Arab commanders told the Palestinians to leave because there was a risk of them losing their lives. That did happen.
Yes,
but the bulk of the people that left, they left under persecution and the barrel of a gun. Okay? When you say that there is fault on both sides, when you say considerable fault on both sides, I say when Jimmy Savile is scratched by the child because he's abusing it, it's not an equal comparison. One is far weaker, doesn't have the international community, especially America and Britain, with all of its armaments and its aeroplanes and its navy and its army, whereas the other party has very little, right? So it's not equal in any way. These people are widely accepted today. The international community and most people within the world have seen through this nonsense, this propaganda, and they can see that there are people who are poor, who are destitute, who are being massacred. Remember one thing, there was no Hamas in 1948. There was no Hezbollah. These came decades later, decades after the occupation, decades after the Nakba, decades after the humiliation that the Arabs have felt. Now just look at the insanity that we're seeing today. We're seeing Palestinian prisoners being raped on camera. And then when this is made public, we have Israelis and we have the politicians in Israel demonstrating not to stop the rape, but to defend the rapists. I mean, how utterly crazy.
Right, okay.
How utterly crazy have things turned out now?
You make a lot of points, and I share your thing that these need to be examined in detail. Your first point was the one about the oppression of Jews and the presence of Jews in the Middle East during the Ottoman Empire. And that's a very, very good point. And thank you for pointing that out, because I am not a Roman Catholic. What the Roman Catholic Church did was start to abuse the Bible by saying the Jews were anti-Christian, and anti-Semitism in Europe is not on any of the Arab people. Anti-Semitism in Europe comes from the Roman Catholic Church. So, that is clear. And the Jews were expelled from the land, and I refute and will fact check this, that the Palestinian Arabs are descendants of Canaanites. However,
They are.
However,
it's Harvard University.
However, I know. Look, I'm not going to debate that.
Yeah.
What I would say is that the Arabs and the Israelis are very, very, very ethnically related. You are cousins, and the Bible says that the Arabs were the descendants of Ishmael and the Jews were descendants of Isaac. And it is a very historic matter of fact. So, the genocide against the Jews in Europe is on the Catholic Church for starting it in the Middle Ages. And what the Nazis did in Europe needs to be remembered forever, because it is starting again in this country. Because we should never have theocracy, we should never have Islamic states or Christian states, which is what Bob proposes. Sorry, I got to mention Bob. Right, you mentioned about...
You need to wash your mouth out now.
Oh, sorry.
Mouthwash. You need mouthwash.
Why, have I got what?
Well, you said Bob.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Right. No, he's a very, very bad person, in my opinion. Now, when you get back to the 48-49 war, the League of Nations established the mandate for Palestine as a Jewish homeland, and the British managed it. There was the Peel Commission, which suggested partition. The Israeli side accepted partition, and the Arabs rejected it. So the idea that the Gaza Strip and Judea and Samaria, otherwise known as the West Bank, is a complete lie. It is not occupied land. As the Prime Minister of Israel said at the time, we would give it back if we had someone to give it back to. Now, I know that will inflame you. Now, after the 48-49 war, what happened was 1 million Jewish people were expelled from Arab countries into what is now the modern state of Israel. So for the Arab side to say that this is a poor load of displaced people, yes they are, but that was 70 years ago. You do not hear Germans wanting Stettin back. It is now part of Poland. What I would like to bring the conversation towards is that what do you do about the problem now? When there was a war, the Arab side rejected the UN partition plan. And then in 1967, Israel launched a preemptive strike on Egypt and defeated Egypt. They also fought with the Jordanians and took Judea and Samaria back, which was part of the mandate. They also, for security purposes, took the Golan. Now, they did not take those lands off any country. They were originally part of the mandate. There has been the Oslo Accords. There have been the Abraham Accords, which Trump has proposed. There is a proposal from President Trump to rebuild Gaza because it's a bomb site. I have met people across the Middle East. You meet Jordanians, you meet Bahrainis, you meet Saudis. They share a common language. They share a very, very rich culture. What the thing to do now is to rebuild Gaza. Those people have suffered. Sorry.
Okay. So the Israelis accepted the partition plan, the Arabs didn't. If I'm going to get free land, of course I'm going to accept it. If I'm taking your land, you're less likely to accept it. It's common sense, right? I mean, the fact that the Israelis accepted it because they're getting land for nothing, and the Palestinians said, no, this is our land, we've been here for thousands of years.
The League said it was a mandate.
So look, at the end of the day, it's neither here nor there. It's obvious that they would have rejected it. Now, when you say preemptive strike, basically Israel had already the notion that this land, and when, by the way, you talked about the land fund, about land being purchased, that one of the founders of the land fund, his surname is Weiss, I can't remember his first name.
Pause? I've got a bit of pen and paper because then I can answer your point.
I haven't got it on me now, yeah. So when the land fund was being done, and I've got a poem of this on my channel, and I put him on that.
Your channel being?
coachingworked.com. So
This one?
yeah, no, it's not this one.
Okay.
Okay, so on that, when the land registry fund was being formulated and money was being raised, the very person, his name is Weiss, I can't remember his first name, he said it must be known that this land is not going to be shared by two people. The intention, even before the state of Israel was formed, was that this was always going to be a Jewish supremacist state. It was never going to be shared. And the reasons why the Palestinians were so against it and the Arabs were so against the formulation of Israel and the partition was they already knew the aspirations of the land fund, that this was not about sharing land. This was going to be a takeover. Now, the proof in the pudding, I would say, is in the tasting, in the eating, right? What have we seen? Look at the map of Palestine and follow the transition from 1948 to today. And it is exactly as you would expect it to be if you have a nation that wants to take all of the land, because the vast majority of it has now been occupied and taken by the Israelis. That's the reality, right? The proof in the pudding is in the eating.
But
now,
I object to you saying that the Jewish people were saying they were getting free land. As I refer you back to what I said earlier. Under the Ottoman Empire, Zionist settlers came and purchased
not
land.
all of it.
No, okay,
some of it.
Look, I'm not.
Some of it.
I would invite viewers to go away and look at the Jewish.
I'm happy to put it on record.
Okay, we can go.
Some of the land.
Listen.
Some of the land changed hands, but the 500 villages during the Nakba that were emptied. Okay, that was not purchased land. That was stolen land.
Look, okay.
Look, no. I'm just going to finish my point here, right? I'm going to finish my point. Guys, look, we can make things very, very complicated and convoluted. But the reality here is this. If today the indigenous Australian said that I was here thousands of years ago, I want the whole of Australia back, it's not going to happen.
No.
If the indigenous American comes back and says, guys, you stole my land 200-300 years ago, I want all my land back, it's not going to happen. Okay? If the Jewish people, and I'm not saying that there was not persecution, I'm not saying that Jews were not killed, the pogroms did not happen. I'm not saying that. They were treated very badly. And as you said, predominantly by the Catholics and the Christians. The Jews,
the Catholics.
When people say Judo-Christian values or Judo-Christian alliances, there's no Judo-Christian alliance. They were being hunted, they were being killed en masse by the Christians. There was an Islamic Judo alliance.
Not the real Christians.
There was a Judo Islamic.
Real Christians do not.
There were, well, you say real Christians, they thought they were real.
Catholics.
They thought they were real,
That's
right?
misinformation,
I agree.
my friend.
Okay, Catholics, fine,
That's
fair enough, right?
They believe
There was a
it's
Judo
a
Islamic. There was a Judo Islamic alliance, and we see that throughout history. And as I said, Professor David Wasserstein, who wrote the article in the Jewish Chronicle, you can go and read it. That's exactly what he confirms. Now, when you say that Jews were thrown out of Arab lands after the formation of Israel,
yes,
there is some truth to that. But there is also a lot of evidence that Mossad went into those lands and they said that you have a threat, these people are going to kill you, and they scared the Jewish communities. And many of them left. And today, there are Moroccan Jews who left Morocco, who are, some of them are returning back. They're returning back to Morocco. You know why? They're returning back to Morocco because they said that the Zionists, that the Mossad, they came and they lied to us. They told us that we are under threat, that we're going to die, and so they forced us. And this was all done. This was all done to occupy the lands of the Palestinian people. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, brother.
Right, okay.
But the point I'm going to finish up on is this.
Carry on, yeah.
Theft of somebody's land is never allowed. If it belongs to you and you've been living there for thousands of years, nobody has the right to say that I was there thousands of years ago. Today in England, if you have medieval or pre-medieval communities coming and saying, we were living here. I want London back.
I want London
Are
back.
you going to get it back? No, you're not.
Wait, I'm doing
No,
this
you're
debate.
not. Because we don't operate like that. So this notion about we were there thousands of years ago, therefore we have a right to take that land off you, okay? And we can take you home and we can evict you from this. That's wrong. And that is wrong in every circumstance. You cannot defend that. And anybody who does defend that, I'm sorry, is on a very, very dodgy wicket. Yes, but if you're now saying that because it's been, okay, fine. So if you're saying that because it's been a long time, we have to now just ignore everything that happened, I would say no. And you know why I say no? Because after the Second World War, as I mentioned, we had an international community that got together in the United Nations.
Said no more.
And we said that we're going to have an international agreement that we are not going to allow this type of behavior to happen any longer. And if it does happen, it will be illegal and there will be consequences. And there will be consequences. And so there was a line drawn in the sand. And it was after that agreement, global agreement, national unity, that we have the situation where Israel is in breach of those laws, those very laws that were instigated and that were solidified after the Second World War.
What you are doing is twisting historical fact.
Then show me where. Show me where.
Give you
please, show me where.
Historical
No, show
fact.
me where I twisted.
Right, now listen.
What did I twist?
Well, that can be fact checked on video.
No, please
and
show me. Tell me. I'll be happy to.
People will go and fact check
I'm happy for you to tell me.
This guy has interjected. I am speaking now. Right. We have the Zionist movement. People knew about it. It was known about at the end of the 19th century. In the First World War, the Ottoman Empire sided with the Central Powers of Germany and the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. And the British and the French and the Americans defeated that alliance in the First World War. The territory of Syria-Palestine was then basically partitioned under the Sino-Pino agreement. And the mandate for Palestine was designated as a Jewish homeland. That was the decision of the League of Nations. Now, the Balfour Declaration was in 1917, and then the British took over the mandate for Palestine in around 1922. I have already conceded that the British did not always work that one out right. The British were the ones who prevented Jewish refugees from Europe from coming into that territory, which was designated a homeland. The Jewish Virtual Library, I'm quoting my source, which is obviously a biased source, as are the sources you are quoting.
No.
You are claiming...
Not at all.
Right.
These are widely accepted,
made
widely
an
agreed.
accusation that Mossad went and expelled.
They did.
Well, okay.
Fact check me if you don't believe me. Please go ahead. Fact check me.
You have already acknowledged that in 1948-49 there was a war. Israel was attacked from all sides. It was attacked by Egypt. It was attacked by Iraq.
Because villages were emptied out.
It was attacked by Jordan.
Because thousands of Palestinians had been killed. That's why.
The aim of the Arab armies was to destroy the Jewish state.
That's not true.
It is
That's
true.
Not true.
It is
That's a lie.
true.
That's a lie.
You're confusing your timelines.
Yeah,
it is true.
That's a lie.
And the League of Nations designated.
After the UN
Sir, you are interjecting. Yes, you're quite right. In 1947, the United Nations, which you support so well, said that they had proposed the partition plan. The Israelis accepted it and the Arabs rejected it. And then Arab states,
obviously, because it's their land.
Arab states,
it's obviously their land, isn't it?
then attacked a foreign land.
That's not true.
And the Israelis defended themselves.
That's not true. The Palestinians were already going through a persecution. They turned to the Arab nations and they said, "Help us! We're being annihilated here. We're being killed. We're being killed. They're stealing our land. What you brothers around here why don't you come and defend us? Look, the point I'm trying to make the point that I'm trying to make to you here is a very simple one. A very, very simple one. You know, a picture speaks 1,000 words. Just go and look at the map of Palestine.
That's propaganda.
1948
That's propaganda.
to today. That picture alone will tell you everything you need to know. Because if you are a peace-loving people and you have America, a superpower, okay, that is supporting you, you do not need to do what you've done to that land, and you can visually see that from the map that we have today. Look at the condition of Gaza today. Look at what Palestinians have gone through for the last 75 years. That is not a peace-loving people who wish to share the land. The very founders of this land had from their own lips, they had said, this land is not for two people. This land is not going to be shared. And the map today clearly shows that that plan has been systematically used and abused, and the river to the sea is exactly what
genocidal chant.
Oh, not when the Israelis say it, but only when the Palestinians say it.
There's a huge difference.
Right. When the Israelis say it, it's not genocide.
There is a simple difference.
When the Palestinian says it, then it's genocide.
There is not genocide, of course not. You have to be stupid not to realize that.
What's that?
Because there are Arabs, 2 million Arabs living in Israel.
Yes.
So having Israel from the river to the sea does not mean no Arabs. It just means sovereignty.
What does the river to the sea mean when the Palestinians are saying it?
However, having a Palestinian state from the river to the sea means October 7 means killing all the Jews.
No, that's rubbish.
That's the difference. You're not rubbish.
I'll tell you why it's rubbish. I'll tell you why it's rubbish. I'll tell you why it's rubbish.
You have to be really stupid.
I'll tell you why that's rubbish. Let me make my point.
No, you don't.
Let me answer my point. Were there Jews and Arabs living in that land, and was the majority Arab at that time, before pre-1948?
Yes.
Yes. Did they kill all the Jews?
Well, 1929.
Did they kill all the Jews? Did they kill all the Jews?
As many as they could.
No, they didn't.
As they could.
If they wanted to.
No, they didn't.
If they wanted to.
They wanted to, they couldn't.
Listen, my friend, you don't know your history.
Yes, we do.
Who were the people? Who were the people that introduced Jews? Don't talk over me. Don't talk over me. Who were the people who introduced the Jews back to that land? It was the second caliph. It was the second caliph. Can I make my point?
Without lies.
Can I make my point?
And stop going back.
Can I make my point? Can I make my point?
Let's talk about
Can I make my point?
There are 2 million Arabs.
Can I make my point?
Israel from
this isn't Israel. You don't get to talk over me and not allow me to make my point.
Finish your point.
So be fair. Be fair.
Finish your answer and I'll answer you.
It was the second caliph, Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu, who turned and asked, where are the Jews?
I don't know.
And the Christian said, we killed them and we evicted them from this land. And then he said, go and find me 80 families, 80 Jewish families, and this land will be for everybody.
So
that's the reality. Now,
to answer your point,
when we say there was this massacre or there was that massacre, I'm not denying that there were wrongs done by Palestinians, by Arabs, and by Jews. I'm not denying that. But what I'm saying is, fundamentally, if you come and you steal a people's land, and you evict them from their land forcibly, and you shoot their children, and you starve them, and as the international community agrees, that this is an apartheid state. One law. Let me finish my point. 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 You can come back when it's your turn.
Please come back.
The question was, what's the difference between Netanyahu saying from the river to the sea and the Arabs saying from the river to the sea? And my point was, when Netanyahu says it, he's talking about Israeli sovereignty, which does not mean genocide, because there are 2 million Arabs living in Israel.
But you're assuming
genocide.
Right.
I'm not assuming.
But you're assuming.
You know what? There's the Ask Project on YouTube. Go find it. Gilded Chorus.
So why is let him finish his point.
They would not
let him finish his point.
Jews to live in Palestine. In fact, it's illegal for Jews to buy in the Palestinian areas to sell land to
Jews. So the Jews are the victims.
So the Jews would be
Israelis and the victims.
From the river to the sea.
They've taken all the land,
From the river to
but
the
they're the
sea
victims.
Would be without
Yes,
Jews.
yes. They've taken all the land, but they're the victims.
You've twisted it
Yes.
again.
Yeah.
No, you've twisted again.
Possibly 150,000 people are dead today, but they're the victims.
No,
They're always the victims. Always the eternal victims.
Twisted again.
Yes.
Twisted again.
Look at the map.
Twisted again. If there's Palestinian authority from the river to the sea, that is
Poor Israelis.
That is genocide.
Poor Israelis.
That would be genocide.
Poor Israelis.
It's not going to happen.
Poor Israelis.
No, it's not going to happen.
You are the victims.
But that is a genocide.
You are the victims.
No.
The genocide.
Yes.
I'm just
Yes,
focused.
you're the victims,
No, I can stay
but you've
focused.
stolen all the land,
I can stay
but you're the
focused.
victims.
I can stay focused.
Yes, you stay focused.
Even
Yes.
if you say we stole, which is a lie.
Oh no, it was your land, right? Of course.
There are 2 million Arabs living there.
There's 2 million Arabs.
Second-class citizens.
They're not.
They're not second
They are.
class.
Get a vote.
Do they have the right to return to the land?
Return, they're living there.
Do they have the right to return?
They are living
Do
there.
they have legally the right to return? Do they have the right to return to their land? If they're taken out of the country, do they have the right to return?
Of course, it's
No, they don't.
citizens.
But a Jew
Israeli citizens
living in Manhattan,
vote.
who's never been to Israel, has the right to return.
Arabs in
Right?
Israel
But the
are
Arab,
citizens, Israeli
the Arab
citizens.
does not have the right to return.
No, they're Israeli
Okay,
citizens.
I'm going to make my point.
Right, can I actually ask that I can speak
I'm going to
here?
make my point.
Can I speak here,
I'm
both
gonna-
of you?
No, I'm going to make my
Please.
point first.
No, because it's getting heated.
I want to
want
make my
speak.
point. I want to reply.
Finish.
I want to make my point.
Finish, please.
Okay, we can come up with all sorts of justifications and reasons as to why something is right or wrong. We can do that, right? But fundamentally, as I said, and Harvard University did a DNA testing on the Palestinian people. They have roots to that land dating back 3,500 years to the Canaanite people of that land.
Can I get
They
this?
are as much of that land as anybody else. Okay? So for another community,
getting the
regardless of whether they claim they were there or not, and many of them are European Jews, they have no DNA even linked to that land. Okay? Yet they feel that they have a right to that land to take it from the Palestinian who's been there for thousands of years. That is fundamentally wrong.
I would like to speak.
So when you want to play the victim, you can let me just finish. When you want to play the victim, all I'm going to say is go and look at the map of Palestine.
I want to talk about the map,
and you'll
mate.
see who
I
the
wanna
victims
talk about
are.
the map. I'll tell you
You'll
about.
see who the violent.
I will tell you about the
You
map.
will see who the violent
tell you about the map.
perpetrators are. You will see who the
I will tell you
who
about
the
the
thieves
map.
are, and you will see who the victims are. A picture says 1,000 words.
No, it says-
they
you're
can
right.
come up with any type of spiel that they want to come up with. When the people
Tell you whatever
march,
speaker like.
when the people march on the streets of London, and they say
Khyber
from the
chant.
river to the sea,
The Khyber
Palestine will be free. This is not calling for the annihilation and the killing of all
still
Jews.
actually time is
That is
going.
nonsense. That is
listen.
rubbish. That is nonsense.
Can I speak, please? Can I speak?
Go ahead.
Because I haven't been allowed to speak. I would ask you politely to be. I would like to. Right.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's talk about a map, and let's talk about the horrors which the Roman Catholic Church did to Jews in Europe. And I have already conceded that Arabs and Jews lived together under the Ottoman Empire, which was the predecessor of the Mandate for Palestine.
You're repeating
now, I will
yourself.
tell you
You're
something.
repeating everything.
I will repeat it because you don't want
But
to learn.
it's not valid for what
No,
we're
I
talking
am.
about now.
You've just repeated your DNA claim, which people can go and
It's a
fact
fact.
check.
It's a fact. You can
Well,
go check it.
Okay, you can go and check
I'm
it.
willing to
gonna
put my.
also give you another fact.
I'm willing to put my reputation on the record.
You
here.
are now interrupting me. I have got a picture of the flag for the Mandate for Palestine. It is a Star of David.
Who cares?
Because the mandate for Palestine was to create out of the home out. You are now interrupting me. Was to create for the Jewish people a homeland.
Who gave them that right?
And the flag of the British was that if you were called a Palestinian, you were called a Jew. I will quote to you a Nazi Germany game. Now, Nazi Germany was the most evil regime.
It's got nothing to do with what
you
we're
are
talking about.
interrupting
We're not
me.
talking about
You
that.
are interrupting me.
But I think you're going way,
No, I'm not.
way
Because
way
the
off
Jews,
point.
because
It's got
the
nothing to do-
Nazi
exactly.
evil people,
Exactly.
the Nazis who are playing the same games which the far right are playing now, The Nazis had a game of snakes and ladders where the Jewish people were to be deported to Palestine.
I'm not saying they weren't victims.
You are interrupting
I'm not saying they're not victims.
The British flag for the mandate of Palestine was the Star of David because it was created by the League of Nations in 1922. And in 1922, I'll tell you about a map. Churchill, I've already said on camera, and I'll have the Bobites after me for that, was not always perfect. And what he did was he partitioned the mandate. He partitioned and said that Jordan would be for the Arabs.
Oh, can I just come back with that point?
I am finishing. So the map of the mandate for Palestine are the following territories. Gaza, the Gaza Strip, the country now known as Israel, Judea and Samaria, and I will use it by its proper name, it's known as the West Bank, and the modern state of Jordan. That was all the mandate for Palestine, to be designated as a Jewish homeland for a people who'd been oppressed in Europe for centuries.
Give them Europe. Give them Germany.
Yes, I've already
give them a part of Germany.
But the fact is,
don't steal somebody else's
Sir,
land.
you are interrupting me.
Can I just finish?
Sir, no, because
can you finish your point?
It is 2025, not 1925. 100 years have passed, and the people of Israel.
It's irrelevant.
It's
irrelevant.
Hamas
the persecution hasn't stopped
on the people of Israel.
Palestinians have been attacked for 75 years.
It was an evil
What about the women of children of Palestine? What about the women of Palestine? What about the children of Palestine? What about the Palestinian children? What about the Palestinian women who've been murdered and killed 100 times more than the Israelis? Right? Hold on a second. So your claim is some white men from Europe, let me just make my point. Some white men from Europe and America decided that they were going to take some land for some brown people in Palestine, and that makes it legal and that makes it right. Why should we accept that? Why should we accept that? Why should we accept that? These people have been there for thousands of years, and someone says, I'm going to give your land. By the way, this marriage that the Jews had with the Europeans to settle. Hold on a second. To settle in Palestine was a marriage of convenience because the Europeans wanted the problem of Jewry, the Jewish problem as they saw it, because they stopped immigration even when the Holocaust was going on in Germany. They did not want Jews in Europe. So what? And that's true. You know that the Europeans and the Americans, they stopped Jewish immigration even while the Holocaust was going on. And so what they wanted to do was give them that part of land so that they could get rid of the Jews out of Europe, and they would have this land, and it would become an eternal base for the Europeans.
What about the photographs?
Now, the point that I'm trying to make here is simple.
Where did the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem spend the war,
Where did the
Grand Mufti of Jerusalem spend the war?
There were Zionists that went and met Hitler. There were Zionists that went and met Hitler. You know that. There were Zionists who went and met Hitler. Yes. So don't just point to the Grand Mufti. There were Zionists that went and met Hitler.
Genocide on Jews.
There were Zionists that met Hitler because to have the project of Israel, they wanted the Jews to be evicted from Europe so they could have their Zionist entity in Israel. So please, learn your history. Learn your history.
If on Facebook I put a picture of the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem with Hitler,
let him make his point.
You carry on.
What land?
You say that the British didn't have the right to give it to the Jews.
Yes.
Why not? Whose was it?
Was it European?
The people who lived there. It was their land.
Well,
yes, it was. Hold on.
Oh yeah, he's
hold on. The people that that lived there did not own
he's
the
not
land.
with the fairy godmother.
They might have owned their house.
He's not with the fairy godmother. He's with Hitler.
Why? Why is that?
Because basically,
Why is that?
the Grand Mufti was
There were
doing, he was
people living there
encouraging
for
Hitler
thousands of years.
to make genocide on the
Yes,
Jews.
I am.
That's what he was doing.
Yes, I do.
Maybe, yeah?
Yes, I do.
But is the country yours? No, your house.
So if
you keep confusing.
Okay, fine,
private
okay.
and public.
So my house is mine, right?
Yes.
My garden is my garden, right? So if you come and take my house,
Yes.
is that wrong?
Yes. Now
Is that wrong?
Yes.
Yes. And that's what you've done. That's what you've done. That's exactly what you've done. So thank you for making my point.
Stop lying, unfortunately.
If he doesn't,
Thank you for making my point. Yeah, if he doesn't, somebody else will.
Stop lying.
Yes.
Stop lying.
Oh yes.
So wait. What you're saying is,
the Jews were given the
sorry.
Let him make his
What you're
point.
saying, wait.
Sovereignty.
Sorry, my
Yes.
brother. What you're suggesting is no houses were taken over.
Exactly.
Is that what you're suggesting?
Not with the UN vote.
What are you talking
The
about?
UN vote
talking
was the
about?
great
The UN
state.
vote started the war, the civil war, which you like to deny.
Listen,
but
the question
Arabs
is-
that were-
the
that
question
were
is-
expelled before 1948 and 1947 was when they started warring against the Jews.
Yes.
After the 1947 vote, the UN vote.
Do you think the
Arabs-
500 villages during the Nakba that were emptied out by the
No,
Israelis,
I think-
750,000
That's
people,
a claim
was that a good thing to do? Was that right?
Yes, of
It was a good thing to
Claim.
do.
Of course it was.
There's our problem.
It's a claim.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a
Claim.
question.
Thank you.
Of course it was right.
Thank you very
Because
much.
It was war.
Thank you
The
very
war that
much.
They started and they lost.
Now look at this. Now look at this. Now we
think you
hold on a
start
second.
a war and
Okay,
lose
okay.
square
So
one,
if it
you don't
okay,
get to go
okay,
back
great,
to war.
great. I'm glad you said that.
You don't get to
I'm
get
glad
back to
you said
square
that.
one
I'm
if you
really
lose the war
glad.
you start.
I'm really glad you
But
said
the
that.
Ottomans lost the
Can I
war.
finish my point? I'm really glad he said that.
Now we need time.
Because he said, in war, if you take the land, then it's okay. Therefore, might is right.
No, that's
No,
not
it's
what I
not.
Hold on a
It's
second.
not.
I haven't finished my point.
That's not what I said.
I haven't finished my
That's not
point.
what I said.
I haven't finished my
That's not
point.
what I said.
I haven't finished my
That's not
point.
what I said.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to let me finish my
don't
point.
paraphrase.
So
Don't
therefore,
rephrase.
might
No.
is right.
That's not
Now,
what I said.
the point here is,
I know.
under the United
I
Nations,
said.
the very United Nations, the very United Nations that they keep citing about giving them the land,
Just misquoted
the
me.
very
1 minute.
United Nations,
No, I did not
the
say
very
that.
United Nations, the very United Nations, the very United Nations that they cite about giving them the land, told them that what they've done is illegal.
No, the wrong
It's
United Nations.
illegal. But they don't care. But they don't care. But they don't care.
But wait a minute, if we're talking about wars,
You know what? You're very good at doing these fancy sound bites with your snug smile.
Now you've got your smug smile as
problem
well.
is, because we have a Jew who knows something and has focus, and I'm not going to be distracted by all your stupid arguments.
Right.
First of all, don't misquote me. What I said is you do not get to start a war, lose it, and go back to square one.
Who started the war?
Arabs,
Who started the war?
Arabs.
Who started?
Arabs in 47.
Who started it?
Again.
The Arabs
Hold on.
in
Who started it?
47. Fourth time. Arabs in 47.
Yeah.
You want a fifth time? The
Go ahead.
Arabs in 47.
Right.
They started the war
Why do they not like
after
it?
the 29th of November UN vote. They started
Why
the
did they
war
start the war?
because
The Palestinian
they didn't
hoax
want
is
Jews to have
ridiculous.
sovereignty
Yeah,
in
it's
that
actually
land.
an elaborate
Even-
hoax.
That is not a lie. That is the absolute truth. They started a civil war.
No, they're not,
Before the
because
civil
what they're
war,
doing
because
is
there
they're
was no countries
attacking
yet.
military
There were Arab
installations.
countries.
This guy's
There
just
was
admitted
no
that-
civil war.
Let's
In
use-
1948,
let's
the
use
day
the
after
one
Israel
thing
declared
we-
independence,
So I would say idea
the next
is
day
like-
they actually started a proper war. There was the Arab League of Nations, including Iraq,
Which
was
attacked
miles
away with armies on
They also
Israel.
attacked, and that was the second war, that was an actual war. So they started the civil war. They lost, many Arabs lost their homes in that civil war, and then they started a proper war. And then again, many Arabs lost their homes. Well, you start a war, and you lose.
take
you
the
do not go
consequences.
back
Right.
to square one.
Now his
That's
claim
right.
his claim is
Is this true?
his claim is
fact check that.
okay let's fact check it, right. His claim is the peaceful Jews just went in there to live in the land.
No, to be
To live in the hold on a second.
Again, don't misquote me. Don't misquote me.
To live in the land,
Don't
to be
paraphrase.
sovereign in the
Don't
land.
paraphrase.
These are just
Don't
simultaneous. These are the
paraphrase.
same
Don't
things.
say
It's always
he
great
said,
when someone
and you're
takes
misquoting.
over your debate.
Stop misquoting
This
me.
is what you
Stop
want.
paraphrasing. What I said very clearly, the Jews came there, they bought land with cash.
Yes.
Every inch
Ottoman
of land,
landlords.
every
Of
inch
Ottoman
of land,
landlords.
exactly, every inch of land that the Jews had in 1948 had been bought and paid for with
And paid
cash.
for and legal.
Every inch of land. But the Jews want to be sovereign. Sovereign is not the same as private land. Stop confusing the two, stop conflating it.
Now don't interrupt me.
Because the Jews got sovereignty.
I allowed you to come in twice. I've allowed you to come in twice. You interrupted me.
I should be here.
If I misquote you, then you wait till I finish.
Stop misquoting.
If I misquote you, you wait till I finish, and then you speak. Do not cut me again. Now, the Palestinian people, he's claiming, don't shout in my ear, please.
Sorry.
The Palestinian people,
Which was 1960.
the land fund that he's talking, the land fund, don't, can you stop please?
Sorry.
Well, stop performing for the
The
camera.
land fund, Steve, shut up, Steve.
We need to go time.
The land fund,
about YouTube
the land fund that was set up pre-1948. Pre-1948, the decision was already made that this land was never going to be for two people. This was going to be a Jewish land. His surname is Weiss.
When the mandate said that, the mandate said it was a homeland.
Can I make my point?
Sorry, yeah.
The decision was already made that this land was never going to be shared.
He's not even looking at the
Never going to be shared. Steve, it's my option.
I'm talking to him.
I'll talk how I want to talk because you're shouting in my ear.
Move away.
So get lost.
Having a conversation.
So the land fund that was set up. The other thing was that the land that was purchased, some of the land was purchased. He's right. Some of the land. Don't interrupt me. Some of the land was purchased. Now, what did they do? They evicted the Arab farmers and they put the Jewish farmers in and they were evicting them from the land, slowly but surely. Now, this was no secret. The Arabs knew this was never going to be a sharing of the land. This was going to be an occupation. This was going to be a subjugation. This was going to be an oppression. And they were intending from their own testimony, they were going to take all of the land. Now, even if you argue,
That's me.
I know, Steve, it's difficult for you to hear because it's such a Zionist. Because you got your head up the arse of the Zionist. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's uncomfortable for you. I know it's really uncomfortable. You like the smell, don't you? You like the smell. You like your smell. The smell.
Can we do time?
So the point here is the intention was always, and this was verbalized. You can go and fact check me if you want to. The early Zionists made it very clear that this was never going to be shared land. This was going to be Jewish land for the Jewish people. It was never going to be shared with the Palestinians. And they have instigated. If you look at the map today, it's clear that the very intention and the very actions that the Israelis have done is to occupy all of the land, which, by the way, they probably will. That's the reality. So you're not the victims.
No.
You're not the victims here. The victims are the Palestinians.
No, they're not the victims.
They're the victims. You're not the victims. No.
They're the losers.
It was their land. You came into their land. You evicted them from their land. They are the victims.
They were tenants.
You are the thieves. You are the thieves. You stole their land. You stole their land. And you persecuted them. And so that's why they fought you.
Right, can I make
That's
a point?
why they fought you.
Can I make a point? And I don't want to shout, sir. And this guy here. Can I make a very, very important point here? Before the First World War, this was the land of the Ottoman Empire.
You keep repeating that.
I know, but it is very important. You don't like to hear it. Because
I have no issue with that.
Jewish people, and this guy knows a lot more than me,
Give them Germany.
legitimately
Give them a part of Germany.
bought the land.
Why
Now,
steal
if
somebody
I
else's
go back
land?
to my old house and I say, sorry, I didn't mean to sell it to you, I'm really sorry.
I'm not talking about that.
No.
I'm not talking about that.
It was bought legally
I'm not talking about that.
before the First World War. And the Ottomans, and this
That's
is the
nonsense.
other lie.
You're just
about
spouting propaganda now.
No, I'm not
It is.
spouting.
It's
because
propaganda.
At the end of the 19th century,
It's
there was
nonsense.
no such thing as a Palestinian people. people.
pictures of Gaza?
They
No,
were
no.
an invention of the KGB in the 60s. And
please,
what happened?
please.
What happened was
Don't
the
rewrite
Ottomans
history.
lost the war.
Don't rewrite history.
I'm not rewriting history. The Ottoman Empire was broken up by the British and French into mandates. One of the mandates was the mandate for Palestine, which was to be a Jewish
Who cares? Who cares?
homeland.
Who cares?
And the Jews legitimately
Who cares?
bought land.
There's people
you're
living
shouting
there.
across me.
It's nonsense.
You are shouting across me. You are talking to your cameras.
You were doing exactly the same to me.
I am talking that. Then, so what? War number one, the Ottomans lost the First World War. The treaties made by the international community, which you love so much, which is the League
No,
of
I
Nations.
don't. I think they're a bunch of
The
thieves.
League of Nations set
They-
up
they-
the mandate.
they're a bunch of thieves.
The United Nations voted to support the creation of Israel.
Why do they
and the
do that?
partition.
Why do they do that?
The Arabs rejected.
Yeah, why shouldn't they
peace.
reject it?
The Arabs
Why should they
inside
accept it?
The Arabs
Why should they
inside
accept their
territory
theft of their land?
rejected it.
Why should they
The
accept
Arab
it?
states
Why should they
attacked the
accept
land
it?
of Israel. You're talking
Why
about-
should they accept the
You're talking
Palestinians
across
being
me.
evicted from their
You are
land?
talking across me, sir.
I mean, the utter hubris, the hubris. I can't believe
It
it.
wasn't their land.
No, it was your land.
They were not sovereign.
It was your land.
They were not sovereign.
It was yours.
It was your land.
It was yours.
It was a European thing.
Because you were there 5,000 years ago.
It's your land.
It was your land.
I don't
Yeah,
focus
it's your
with
land.
all your fallacies
Yes.
and all your strong
Yes.
lands.
They bought
You're the
land.
victims. You're the victims.
Wasn't
You're the
their land.
victims.
Again, I'm not going to lose focus.
You're the victims.
You're, as a European,
Eternal victims.
Wasn't
As a European, it was your land.
Eternal victims.
As a European, it was your land.
They were offered
As a
sovereignty
European, it was
for
your
part of
land.
the land which they rejected.
Yes.
They did not need to be offered sovereignty.
It's somebody's
They were offered
birthday.
sovereignty.
As a
and they
as a
rejected
European, it was your
They were
land.
offered
Why should they accept
sovereignty,
it?
and
They
rejected
rejected
Why should they accept it?
Because it was the first time they
Why should they accept your sovereignty?
No, no, no.
Sovereignty
their
why
before the
should-
war
why-
was the Ottomans.
Why should they accept?
Arab sovereignty.
Why should they accept terms that are
Arab
clearly
sovereignty.
against them?
Why is it
Why
against
should
them?
they?
They were offered sovereignty.
They're taking
was
land
their
off
land.
them. Why should they accept
That
that?
was their land.
It's nonsense.
It wasn't their
Would you
land.
accept
It was
your?
their
Would you
land.
accept your
Ottoman
house to be
So
taken
so
over?
you
No.
right.
It was Ottoman
It was
land.
their
It
land.
wasn't Arab land.
It was
Ottoman
their
The
land.
Arabs were occupied by the
Their
Ottomans.
land.
It
It was
wasn't
their land.
They've never been
Okay, it was their house.
They were
It was
not
their house.
exactly.
It was their house.
Again, confusing public
Can I just say I agree
Anyway,
with
I'm going to
you.
finish what I'm going to say. I'm going to finish what I'm saying.
The Turks.
I'm going to finish
But
what
they were all under
excuse me.
occupation of the Turks.
I'm going to
We need some order then.
I'm going to finish what I'm going to say.
No, because
right?
you keep interjecting.
I'm
me.
going to finish
You
what I'm
keep
going to say.
interjecting.
I'm going to.
The
It's nothing to
Turks
do with
colonised the
reform.
Arabs.
Please, just one second.
Okay.
Okay.
It was British occupation.
I think.
The Roman occupation.
It was all occupation.
All the way back to
So
the
does that
Roman
make it
occupation.
right? So does that make it right?
I always
So does that make it right? Does that make it right?
belong to the Jews.
Does that make it right?
Especially with the
Does that
Roman
make it
Catholic
right?
Church.
No, the Jews didn't
How's the
colonize
Pope
that.
doing?
The Palestinian people, according to Harvard, excuse me, let me make my point. Harvard University
You're a Tommy.
did a DNA test on the Palestinian people. Between 50 and 70% of the DNA of the Palestinian
I reckon
people
this is dodgy.
goes back to the Canaanite people
Canaanite
for 3,500
I think
years
that's
ago.
a lie.
They
That's a
are
lie.
from that
I actually
land.
think that's a lie.
Many of the Israelis have Polish DNA. They have Hungarian DNA. They have a Greek
all the DNA
and Italian DNA. They're not Semitic.
Zionists do.
Many of them.
Zionists do.
So this is not your land. It says the Safaris and some of the other groups, they have more blood and they have more DNA connected to that land than many of the Polish. Even Netanyahu's own name is a Polish name. It's not even Benjamin Netanyahu. He just made it up to sound more Jewish. That's the sort of conniving nonsense that they do to fool the people.
What about the Kayaba
Nonsense.
chant?
Nonsense.
What about
Anyway,
the Kayaba
I'm
chant?
done with
Do you
this.
want
Thank
to-
you very much.
Actually, sir, I would
just
like
nonsense.
this gentleman.
Nonsense.
Do you know
The world clearly sees. The world clearly sees what is happening here. The world sees it. You're a minority. And the people that support this genocide are a minority. The vast majority of the human race are on the side of the Palestinians.
What about the
It is a small minority, literally a handful in the global community. A handful. A handful. Oh, but you see, every tyrant, every
What
tyrant
tyrant?
has prevailed for a time, and then the hammer of Allah comes down. Enjoy it while it lasts. Enjoy it while it lasts. But if you have persecution,
it's going to last.
if you have persecution of a people, it will never last. Allah has made one thing is sunnah.
This is your speaking.
Every
What about the
society,
Kayaba chant?
every society that has done what Israel is doing
What about the Kayaba
has
chant?
murdered and
What
killed
about the Kayaba
with
chant?
impunity.
They will not pay
It has
jizya
seen the
anymore.
downfall of its nation. And,
What about the Kayaba chant?
if Israel does not stop, eventually
What
it
about
will
the
fall.
Kayaba chant?
Just as every nation has
What
fallen.
about the Kayaba
Just as
chant?
every nation has fallen.
Never lasted more than 8
Never,
years.
never.
You said 70.
Never. Exactly. And it doesn't matter if it's a Muslim country, if it's a Jewish country, or it's an atheist country.
What about the Kayaba
If
chant?
you
What about
are
the Kayaba
merciless
chant? The
and
Kayaba
you are
chant.
unjust,
You know what it is?
you will have a downfall. It will happen. It has always happened, and it will happen.
Can I speak? Can I
And these are
speak?
the, by the way, these are the last breaths
Ooh,
of the American empire. It's the last gasp. It's heavily in debt.
It's heavily in debt. You're
$45
right,
trillion.
America's gonna collapse. They're going to collapse.
And at
Don't worry, they're
this
gonna collapse.
rate, they will be bankrupt.
They are going to be
And, your bully that supplies your weapons and gives you the cover, when it falls, if you're not careful, you will fall as well.
What about the Kayaba chant? Can I just close in one sentence and one word? Kayaba. Kayaba chant, which is out of either Quran or Hadith, calling for genocide of Jews.
No, it doesn't.
The Kayaba
Exactly.
chant.
You don't know what you're talking about.
I do. The Kayaba chant.
No, you don't.
The
You
Kayaba
just showed your
chant.
ignorance. You have no idea what you're talking about. And you know what? This is what they have to. This is how they have to.
Just explain.
When we have a
Kayaba
discussion,
chant.
they have to start talking about
Please do it.
nonsense.
The Kayaba
Make
chant.
stuff up to make an
Kayaba
argument.
chant.
It's embarrassing.
I've heard this with my own al-Hakyub.
That is on the soldier's uniform.
Yes.
That shows part of Saudi.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's
Exactly.
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 Jordan. That was part of the mandate.
Exactly.
Because it was part of the mandate.
Yeah, so if it's part of the mandate, everyone has to accept
of
it.
Israel for aid. Are we finished?
I think you're finished, yeah.
No, I'm not finished.
I think you're finished and he's
Oh,
finished.
you haven't explained the
Alhamdulillah,
Kayaba chant.
Alhamdulillah, I'm
You
still
have
here.
not explained the Kayaba chant.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Right, it's K-H-A-Y-B-A-R.
Let's talk about unicorns.
I'm talking to your channel.
Let's
and
talk about
anyone
unicorns now.
listening. I'm not talking about
Anyway.
Right, what else do you got to talk about?
Are you done? Let's shake hands.
We agree, we're both going to end this and agree to disagree. There we go.
Fine, okay.
I really do love the Arab people though.
Thank you.
I hope you win.
It shows. Okay,
I do.
Fine. I'm just going to finish up.
Can I get my...
Please, go ahead.
Your channel. What's the name of the channel? So
I don't know what the channels are.
What's the channel?
Okay.
Muslims in the United Kingdom.
I think that a lot of people like to complicate the issue. Oh, the land was purchased. Oh, it's the bad Arabs. They're the ones. They're the culprits. They didn't want Jews. They fought the Jews. Go and read the article by Professor David Westerstein. He wrote in the Jewish Chronicle. He wrote an article how Islam saved Jewry in Europe. It was the Islamic empires that stepped in when the Christian empires were annihilating and they were massacring the Jews. They had safe haven in the Islamic empire. We do not have a problem with Jews. And as a Muslim, even when we look at the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, when a Jewish man and a Muslim comes to the Prophet, peace be upon him, with a disagreement, the Prophet sided with the Jew because he was right. Because he was right. And we are proud that that is our paradigm. Now, I'm not saying that there were not injustices done by some Muslims against Jews. Of course there were. But the comparison between what the Christians did to the Jews is chalk and cheese. And those things that happened between the Muslims and the Jews were the exceptions. They were not the rule. And I challenge you to go and do your research. And I'm willing to have my credibility on record to say that they were exceptions. They were not the rules. The Jews found sanctity in Arab Muslim lands. We don't have a problem with Jews. This is not about Jews. But when the state of Israel was formed and founded, the Arabs were forced to accept what some powerful nations told them that they would have to accept. Why should they accept that? Why should they accept the Palestinians to lose their land, to lose their property? Now, I'm honest enough to say that the land fund, the Jewish land fund, did indeed purchase some of the land. I'm not lying and saying that they didn't. But this was an effort. And they made it very clear. And if you go and check the records of the early speeches given by the people who were responsible for the land fund, they made it very, very clear, and they're on record of saying that this land is not going to be for two people. This land was always going to be for the Jews alone. It was going to be a Jewish state. So they sneakily and they connively, they did what they had to do, often instigating wars, instigating uproar within the community, where they had gangs running around, emptying out villages. This was going on. This was systematic. The Arabs were not stupid. The Palestinians were not stupid. They knew what these people were saying, that we're going to clear you out of the land. We're buying the land, and then the Arab farmers were thrown off the land that they'd been farming for years. Now you could say, oh, but that's their choice. They bought some land, they want Jews to farm that land. But if you do that systematically, then it becomes quite clear that this is not a sharing of the land, this is an occupation. This is an instigation of a dominance on this land. And they rejected it, rightly so. And there were many massacres that happened. And I know that there were some massacres and some killings that were done by Palestinians. But remember here that the clear victim is the one who's evicted from his land. The one who's persecuted, the one who's thrown out of his land is the clear victim. Now, when he might sometimes do things that are also unjust or unfair, it's not he that becomes the problem. It's not that group that's the problem. The problem is the instigator, the propagator, the one that starts the ball rolling. That is the one that needs to be stopped. You would not accept it if somebody came and took your land, your garden from you, from your house, and said, oh, my great-great-great-grandfather used to live here. I don't care if it's been in your family for 10 generations or for 15 generations. My great-great-granddad 2,000 years ago used to live there, and even though I can't prove it, it looks like a very nice olive tree. It looks like a very nice olive grove. I'm just going to take it. That's got to be wrong, for God's sake. Nobody should accept that. Now we have people who want to legitimize this theft. Theft is always theft. It doesn't become legitimate because decades have passed. Now you could say that, oh, there were empires and in war people took land, as the Jewish friend here said. The Orthodox Jewish friend. What did he say? He said, you don't get to start a war and then go back to your land. Well, the United Nations after 1948 said exactly that. They said that no longer can territory be occupied under war. And the reason why the international community agreed with that is because if you don't have that rule in place, you're going to have endless wars where people are going to now fight back to reoccupy their land. And then they will fight back to take the land back again. And it will never end. So there was a line drawn in the sand that no longer is it legal for people to acquire land through war. That is exactly what Israel did. And it's not a case that they were innocent and they just wanted to live peacefully with their Arab cousins, and they had these horrible Arab, these medieval Arab, savage Arabs, just hated Jews. They were anti-Semitic and they just wanted them killed, and that's why these poor Jews had to just take all of their land. No. This was the plan from day one. And we need to call it out for what it is. This is theft. this is occupation, and this is indeed genocide. And it meets the requirements and the definitions of what genocide is. It's widely agreed upon. And just because there are a handful of people who are pretending that this is not a genocide, like this idiot Piers Morgan, who says that because they could have killed all the Palestinians if they wanted to, because they haven't, therefore it's not a genocide. That's not the definition of genocide. It's in part or in whole. It's not about just wiping everybody off. It is well established within jurists that this is a genocide. It is ethnic cleansing. They are clearing out a people, and Trump has made it very clear. As shameless as he is, he said we want to take them out, and he wants to build a holiday resort there. I mean, it's utterly disgusting and despicable. Now, I want to finish with this. If after 16, 18 months you're still supporting Israel, then you are either a racist, or you are a psychopath, or perhaps the third is that you're willfully ignorant. Now, the third one, willfully ignorant, cannot apply, because the level of evidence, the frequency and the veracity of the evidence means that you cannot claim ignorance on this issue. So either you're a racist or you're a psychopath, because Israel has laws that are racially segregating, different between Arabs and between Jews. A person born in Manhattan in America has right to return back to land in Palestine, and a Palestinian does not have the right to return. This is the quintessential definition of an apartheid law. And even the South Africans, even Mandela, agreed that the apartheid in South Africa was nothing compared to the apartheid that we're seeing about the Palestinian people. It's apartheid on steroids. Now, if you support Zionism, which is a racist ideology, then that makes you a racist. Just as if you supported South Africa during apartheid, that would have made you a racist, because you would be supporting racist laws. And the other one is, of course, as I said, you have to be a genocidal maniac yourself to support Israel, to support the Zionism. Now, you have to make the choice. Which one of these two are you? Are you a racist, or are you a genocidal maniac to still support what is happening? You can't claim, oh, it's Hamas. You can't claim these things, because the very Israeli soldiers are filming and are documenting their crimes, including rape, by the way, of Palestinian prisoners. Okay, so their evidence is clear, and it's literally from the very perpetrators. There is no room to maneuver. There are no excuses left. You have to condemn it, because this is wrong. This is unjust. And just remember one thing. As Muslims, alhamdulillah, when we see an injustice, the Quran tells us, even be a witness against yourselves, against your parents, against your families, against your rich or poor. Even if you are the one doing the injustice, you have to condemn it in Islam as a Muslim. So when it comes to Israel, when it comes to Hamas, when it comes to Hezbollah, whoever targets civilians deliberately, killing women or children, we condemn it. We do not accept it. As Muslims, we do not accept that you can target deliberately children, deliberately targeting non-combatants. We don't accept it. But at the same time, when you have Mike Tyson in a ring with a 3-year-old, I'm not going to slap the 3-year-old all the time and tell the 3-year-old off for kicking Mike Tyson in the shin. I'm going to be telling Mike Tyson off, because he's the superpower, he's the giant, and he's the instigator, clearly, because a 3-year-old is not going to want to fight Mike Tyson. That's the reality. The Israelis, the Palestinians rather, have agreed on the two-state solution. They agreed to the 1967 borders, but Israel do not want it. And every time there are negotiations, Israel have a term, and it's called the peace offensive. Every time Palestinians are close to having some peaceful settlement, They call it the peace offensive because they want all of the land. And I'm going to finish on this. Just look at the map of Palestine, and that should tell you everything. This is not a people who want to share the land. This is not a people who intended ever to share this land. Being a military superpower that they are, and with the support of America, a superpower, they could have divided the land, they could have had their security. But the reality is, they want the river to the sea, and the patch on their soldiers, the map is not just Israel. It extends Jordan and Saudi Arabia, and it takes all of the Arab lands. That is the goal, and that is what they want. And they have verbalized it, and their actions have shown it. There is no room for maneuver. So all of these excuses about the Palestinians did this and they did that, I'm sorry. Your guys are admitting it on camera what they want to do. They want these people out, they want the land, they want to take all of the land, and they're finding excuses that we were attacked on the 7th of October, that's why we're doing what we're doing. Well, why were you attacking them for the last 75 years? Why were you killing their people? Why were you putting them through starvation? Counting the calories of how many calories entered. How sadistic is that? So you cannot do that to a people and then expect them to always act rationally and react legally with proportionality. People will lose their minds. If you grow up in a concentration camp, you see your brother being killed, you see your father being arrested, brutalized, murdered, raped with a barrel of a gun and things like that, which are happening. It drives you to insanity, and maybe you do insane things, maybe you do bad things. We're not justifying those, but we need to stop the oppression and we need to stop the occupation. And I'm glad that this mirage, this nonsense about what Zionism actually stands for has collapsed. It has fallen. It is naked and it is bare for everybody to see as to what this ideology actually is. It's a racist, supremacist ideology, and it is a disgrace that people still justify it and they support it. It is a barbaric, violent, oppressive ideology. And I'm glad that it's naked and shameless for everyone to see that they can stand against it. And the globe, this globe, the vast majority of the globe agrees that the Palestinian people are being persecuted, their land is being stolen, and that Zionism is evil and it's a bad thing and it needs to be stopped. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Doing a great job.
Your name, brother? Abbas.